what does success, what does our time, what does our happiness actually look like for us? Because at the end of the day, the thing that we all want is freedom.
Right now we're seeing kind of the death to the hustle culture. And, whereas before we were always taught hustle, 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 or busy, 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 right? Like you should never be the type of person where you have this think time or you have this time to, spend creatively where it's like, your schedule's open or it's not blocked up with different calls or meetings or things like that. And I love that you kind of touch on that because I think that that's such a new way of thinking. And from a lot of these entrepreneurs now are actually talking about it. They're actually talking about, the fact of hiring people, delegating, having this, creative space to actually think about what you want to do. And like you said, reverse engineer your dream life.
Yeah. And I'll make a point here. I will hustle harder than any person out there. Okay. Like I will. But what you're saying is so true. The way we view the hustle and grind culture is evolving. And I interview Clay Hebert in my book, who studied under Seth Godin, and he talks about this idea of the perfect schedule. Okay. Everybody looks to Gary Vee, right? Let's use Gary Vee. Sure. We're talking about hustle, right? Everybody looks at Gary Vee and is like, I want to be the next Gary Vee. That's what all these entrepreneurs talk about, right? And we make videos like Gary Vee. We hustle like Gary Vee. We say we're doing all these Gary Vee things. But Clay makes a great point, and I talk about this in the book, is that everybody wants to be Gary Vee, but nobody wants Gary Vee's schedule.
Yeah.
You're not willing to have Gary Vee's schedule.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it out there. Most people say they want to be Gary Vee, aren't willing to do what Gary Vee does.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean you can't be as good or as influential as Gary Vee? No, you can't be.
But you have to be you in your own way to be able to execute on that.
Sure.
Okay. So I think that that's something that's super, super important is we have to understand what does success, what does our time, what does our happiness actually look like for us? Because at the end of the day, the thing that we all want is freedom. We build a business to help people so that we feel good. We build a business so that we can make money to have freedom. We build everything so that we can have more freedom in our life, right? Mm-hmm. Make a difference, freedom. Those are the things we want. Freedom, happiness, success. The only way we can do that, though, is by creating and designing our life. And it starts by us understanding what does that version of success actually look like to each of us as an individual. And then not feeling guilty if you're not doing the same things or spending your time the same way as other people, because we all fall into that trap.
Okay, wait, let's go there for a second. Because like I told you before, there are a lot of women on this that listen to this podcast, right?
Yes.
And I want to talk about the guilt because I think you just touched on something that not a lot of people talk about. I want you to kind of uncover that a little bit more. So what do you mean when you say guilt? What do you talk about when someone feels guilty when they want to go after their own dream?
So there's quite a few angles to take this. Okay, I'm gonna start narrow and we'll expand. Okay. One of the biggest things that we as humans feel is guilt if we feel we're supposed to be doing something else, or if we feel that we are not living up to our potential, we feel guilty about that. Or if we say we want to go after our potential, but we aren't sure if other people believe in us, we then feel guilt for wanting something on our own. This happens a lot, especially with new entrepreneurs who are leaving something that's very safe. Mm-hmm. And this happens a lot with people that have families because the guilt comes in because the pressure in our minds are greater. So when I talk about guilt, I want to dive into it. And I talk about it in this way is a lot of people, when they start building a side hustle, when they start building a business, the guilt comes in when they aren't working on the business, because often you start as a solopreneur. And when you're a solopreneur, the thought is, if I'm not working, I'm not making money. Therefore, I'm guilty if I'm not working, sure. Right? Because we think if we're not working, we're not making money. So therefore, I need to be working all the time. Yep. And this can cause a lot of stress and anxiety on us, which can slow our momentum, slow our progress, and create exponential amounts of wasted time. And we just talked about how valuable time is. It is not your job to work from 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. every morning if you can achieve the same result from 8 to 11. As a matter of fact, 8 to 11 on good work is better than 8 to 2, 8 to 3 with gaps in between and not a ton of productivity. And this is where we have to take time audits to understand how successful we really are in the time that we're working. Because we know that the majority of people, and there are studies on this, work for about half the time they're actually working, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so, but we feel guilty if we aren't putting in the hours. No, don't feel guilty about putting in the hours and being busy. Feel guilty if you're not being productive in the time that you actually have.
Sure.
Because it goes back to the one truth. You got to build the life that you want to live and that you're going to be proud of. Now, is it going to be, hey, I'm only going to work 3 hours and I'm going to be able to do it? Not necessarily, but it is about you creating boundaries and you understanding that this is a process. Let's document what we do. Let's track our information. Let's see our progress. And then let's decide, do we need more time? Are we on pace to hit what we set out to hit? And overall, when you do that, you can remove a little bit of the guilt, which removes some of the comparison bias, which allows you to be more confident in yourself, which allows the energy to be transferred to your potential clients in a much more enthusiastic and exciting and serving way, which ultimately leads to more business. And if we take that and we start from the beginning there, which is work less, make more, we've now created the magic.
Absolutely. I love the kind of analogy you're giving of like this ripple effect. Right. Yeah. Like it really does kind of, even like you said, it touches your clients. And that's also something too, I've even noticed being in an agency, right? Is that the way that you sell yourself or the way that you show up to clients, or even if you're just in your career, show up to your work, really is affected by how you're feeling or by, this time, this guilt, all these things that are kind of going through your mind. So I think that's also something that's really important.